did actually recently fix a bunch of my web links so that they're less useless. If you go to my main blog on scanlime.org, I have actually two websites. There's scanlime.org and there's misc.aim, which Scanlime was always sort of the technical blog and misc was always sort of the art thing. I haven't been doing as much art lately, so that one hasn't been updated, but Scanlime is a very old blog of mine. Oh, sorry, that was my mic off. Sorry, as I said, I'm trying to get this working. I was tired of delaying for technical reasons, but maybe I should. Check. Oh, I hear what's wrong. Sorry, I wasn't monitoring that. The mic is pointed at the ceiling. I was moving around a bunch of furniture, and I was like, oh, I'll just leave the light up there. That's a fine place for the light. No, that light stand also has the microphone on it. OBS thinks I'm sending audio. Is anyone else experiencing a lack of audio? So usually I just have these streams pretty much set up and ready to go, but I did a bunch of rearranging in the shop last time, or between this and the last stream. Do we still have cameras? Oh, we do still have cameras. It's a little overexposed though. I think I can get the other one on Tuco without too much hassle. Oh yeah, Tuco. Oh, there's Tuco. Tuco, you're not allowed on this desk, honey. Stay off this desk. Okay. Tuco. Tuco, off of this desk. Yeah, I think the audio is, oh, it's even a little too loud now because the mic is down lower than it usually is. Also, that's why this is brighter than it usually is. This whole light stand is down lower than usual. Yeah, I'm still overexposed. Let's fix that. Audio sounds a little more balanced now. Still pretty echoey. How do I usually do this? Yes, I've got to aim the mic at my sweater to keep it from being echoey. That's the deal. Oh gosh. Yeah, so between this stream and the last stream, I just ended up having to move around a bunch of stuff unexpectedly. And it was one of those situations where I just wanted to run, literally I wanted to run one network cable. That was what I wanted. But I guess the shop was already on this tipping point of disorganization to the point where I just had to redo a bunch of the way that this side of everything was organized. Anyway, it's better now. I just had to find like 4 USB extension cables to complete the mess. That was one of the things I might want to go into on stream soon. Not that we don't have enough distractions already, but I've got this USB switcher device, which I've complained about before. And I think if I was going to do like a really serious USB switcher redo kind of project, there's plenty of room for that. And I can imagine like my holy grail sort of, you know, massless cow sort of USB switcher, if I could just have anything that I wanted, my massless pony, whatever, that one would have like a built-in human interface device emulation layer, such that for supported devices, like most of the things I would use, like a mouse and keyboard, and I would probably extend it to stuff like Space Mouse as well, it would actually know how to keep a kind of a shell of an emulated HID device around on all 4 of the computers that it's connected to, or all 8, or however many you have. And then it would kind of switch how you're redirecting packets from the input. The use case here is I like to have one mouse and keyboard on the desk, which I need to use to control multiple machines to make the streaming happen. And when you hear this frustrated noise here, that's me clacking on this terrible USB switcher. And the UI here is annoying. I actually just super glued a nut to the button to make it a little less tactile, oblivious, because it was just kind of hard to even find the button with my finger out of the corner of my eye, you know. But the other problem is you have to like cycle through the channels, and you can't kind of maintain the state of the system in your head and treat it as a fully deterministic system all the time, because sometimes switching to a channel will cause a computer to like wake up its USB devices or come out of sleep or something, and then it will then cause the switch to switch back to that channel, so you end up with these weird loops sometimes. It's very annoying. I was imagining an easy fix where we just go in there and take out whatever microcontroller is responsible for the switching right now and just put in our own thing, assuming it's just got some analog switches or something. But yeah, if we were going to do a nice USB switcher project, there's a lot of room for something fancy. I thought I just saw Tuco walk by, but I was distracted about where exactly he went. Oh no, I was serious about the 4 USB cables, yeah. Well, and the reason I wanted an extension is that I rearranged stuff such that I had, I guess you can see in that camera here, I have this, which is like one of these cheap folding tables I use for everything around here, because I got a big stack of them for workshops. I've got one of these acting as a work surface. I'm trying to keep it as much as possible just work surface and not either equipment or storage or wiring mess. So I've got the equipment actually, so the nice oscilloscope and the power supply and everything else actually is on this little wire shelf over here now. And there's just a little bit of equipment. Like most of the equipment here is in the big equipment rack over there that the cat pole is on top of. But I needed just like a couple of USB hubs and HDMI switchers and stuff over here. Oh, hey, Tuco. And not HDMI switchers, HDMI splitters. So those are over here with the scope. So yeah. Anyway, this seems to be working. Let's just make sure we're actually streaming everywhere. I think we fixed the exposure. So yeah, actually if you go to Diode Zone now, or sorry, if you go to scanlime.org, you can go see the live streaming menu has YouTube Live. It seems to work. Twitch stream. Live, cool. And, oh, I don't have the Diode Zone live stream on here yet. I should put that on there. The announcement bot sends out that link, but I guess when I'm not actually in the middle of a stream, that URL just kind of looks like it's broken, so maybe I'll want to avoid linking it from the main site just yet, but there's also live.diode.zone/scanlime, which does this. Now it looks like it's working. Cool. I was going to turn off the black square, but actually I'd rather put a card in the black rectangle and we can use it. Oops, let's not leave this open because that gets confusing very easily. Oh yeah, and that's relevant. Let's keep that open. I put that there on purpose. Gosh, sorry, this thing is so noisy. Does this tablet still not want to turn on? That is annoying. I think it's one of those devices where even if the AC adapter is plugged in, it doesn't want to power on when the battery is dead because of peak current draw. Either that or it's just broken. I might need to fix that device. It's an old Surface tablet that I got as a donation, I believe, from Kate Temkin a while ago, from Kate, and that's what I use to run the chat and do all the check-ins and stuff. Now I've got to deploy AWS. It's the anti-wobble sandbag. Alright, well I think that's as good as the infrastructure is going to get right here. But yeah, welcome back to the stream. I think we are basically live again. I was going to try to follow around my cat with the camera, but I think he's wandering so much. I guess we'll just keep an eye out for him. Keep the camera in automatic mode, maybe. All right. Well, let's actually open a package first, because I got something in the mail soon, and I'm not really equipped to do this thing proper justice. So, as is often the case, I'm going to open it now, and then we'll have like a proper stream about it later. But we can at least have the thrill of opening a piece of mail and like just taking stock of what we've got. Oh gosh, I still feel overexposed. Only when I lean forward, but add to the list of things that I didn't really QA before starting the stream. You can add the lighting to that. That'll do. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, logged into Gitter and watching on PeerTube. Yeah, it's nice being able to get back to, you know, the dream of the decentralized internet where it's almost like we can have a website without Google these days. Almost. You know, it's hard to get away from the big infrastructure, but it's nice to find ways to make that possible still. Especially with your content, right? And like the combination of PeerTube and its protocol features, especially the relatively recent feature for video redundancy, the combination of that and the Creative Commons licenses really means, oh, Tuco's scratching something over there, but he's next to a pile of casters, and that was like a weird bearing noise. Oh, that's a catnip mouse. Did he bring that over there? Oops. Oh man, I was just watching this new tested video, I guess, that came out earlier today, and they had just like a little behind-the-scenes thing with somebody that runs the like the theatrical winches for Cirque du Soleil. And it's interesting seeing like the large scale version of that in action, because you know I did some research on theatrical winches when I was working on this robot here, and you know I saw a little bit of what's going on, but like at Cirque du Soleil, like they have the giant theatrical winches, and not only do they have a whole bunch of custom controls and everything, but and you know somebody monitoring it continuously with an e-stop switch right there, but yeah, they had this like security camera system just with remote camera set up to monitor all the winches winding evenly. That's nice to see. You know, that's what you need when somebody's life is on, or you know, many performers' lives are on the line, right? When it isn't just a couple of kilograms of robot camera whisking around on plastic. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, let's go back to the real world camera. Make some space. I'm gonna try to keep an eye on chat, kind of, but it's gonna be harder than usual on this stream because I don't have my usual setup. Tuk tuk. I'm not even really sure how you do this on the YouTube Creators app. Is there a separate iOS app for live streaming? Welcome to my live stream where I figure out how to use YouTube. Well, maybe I can join my own live stream from the regular YouTube app. This will be a little weird because I'm logged in as a different user on here than because I don't know, like accounts are weird. Oh gosh, Tuco makes me so nervous. He's crawling around back there where all my wiring is, which I just put in, so I know he's interested in it because it's new and I'm near it. And I think it's all cat-proof, or at least as cat-proof as I am pretty sure I need to make things these days. But yeah, he makes me super nervous because he always wants to investigate the new things, and it's like he's pen testing my infrastructure right away. Okay, so I mean, I am actually on YouTube chat, thankfully, finally. Station 240 detected an EEV blog rant. Oh no. Do you mean, I can't tell if you're being sarcastic. Do you mean that I'm ranting like EEV blog does, or do you mean that there is an EEV blog rant out there that is topical? I can't even tell these days what level of sarcasm we're on. Oh gosh, Tuco, that is super cute, but I don't want to encourage you to hang out on that desk. It's clean right now, but it isn't always. I don't really trust it to be clean, given soldering and everything I do on it. Okay, Tuco. Or is there any EV blog rant about USB switchers? Okay, so I've ripped off the identifying information here, but I've labeled who this came from, lest we forget. So Tim Ansel, you may know them from the internet. Let's find something to open this with. I guess I don't need a knife or anything. I could actually try to open this. Open it like it was intended. Alright. This looks safe. Right? And Jared says, oh gosh, that's super cute, but please don't, is the life of having a cat. Yeah, that's been my experience too. Oh gosh. Dave has a rant on Patreon. That's interesting. Is he ranting about the platform or about people on the platform, or I don't even really want to know, but like part of me is morbidly curious. I don't really watch Dave's videos that much, but I used to be a big fan, and then I got kind of frustrated for reasons which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, but I don't really need to get into right now. And then sometimes he does interesting stuff, but I just haven't really kept on top of it lately. Oh gosh, got like cat fuzz in my face now. I don't actually need to wear these headphones while I'm streaming. I kind of get used to it, but it is a little distracting. Ooh. Oh, these are so cute. Oh, these are so little. Oh my gosh. I don't think that label has anything to do with what's actually in here. Isn't every EV blog rant video, rant video? Yeah, well, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't really been keeping up, but I've certainly seen a lot of rants on this channel. I've also got to remember that when I go off topic, I've got to pause the main action. Otherwise, it makes the videos much harder to edit. Spending a lot of time editing lately. Actually, I've had so much video, like almost ready to release. Like I just released this 4-part series of this FPGA project that we did recently on the streams. Recently, like a couple months ago at this point. But I had that video mostly edited for longer than I think most of you would want to know. Like it was just sitting there, like almost finished. And I kept telling myself I needed to do some kind of complicated intro, outro situation. Oh, Tuco. It's like, oh, I need to properly contextualize this. I need to do all the fancy things that people do. I need to have like more motion graphics. I need to properly like, introduce the channel and like talk about Patreon and do all that stuff. And it just felt like I was setting whatever bar I was setting for myself was always like a couple of feet in front of whatever it needed to be, really. Tuco, I don't know if it's great for you to be standing on those boards I just got. Well, cats are gonna cat. This seems relatively safe. Oh, autofocus is not great. Yeah, so I was stressing myself out with those videos, and I got to the point where I was just like, I just need to stop sitting on all this footage. I was also stressing myself out about the order that I release things in, because the first thing that I edited actually was that that 4-part series. But then I felt like, oh gosh, I'm releasing like all of this video about detailed FPGA stuff without any videos about what FPGAs even are, or why I'm doing this, or where this package came from, or what this LED matrix is. So I felt like, oh gosh, well I just edited the meat of this thing. I don't know why I'm using meat to refer to the substance of something, given that I don't even eat meat. But like, yeah, the substance of the thing. I feel like I'd edited that without really properly editing the surrounding material. I'm still kind of in that point, actually. I've got some more kind of small videos from those same streams that I want to get out that are less finished editing, but I just stopped being a perfectionist about it, and I released them basically in the order that I had them edited in without necessarily worrying about the order people are going to watch them in. So yeah, man, I don't know about expectations, because I feel like part of me is like, part of me is just like a perfectionist. Part of me is trying to beat the perfectionist and like get past that. But then part of me is just seeing like all the stuff that doesn't work, and I'm just using that as like proof that the perfectionist was right, and like, oh man, this thing wasn't perfect, or this thing didn't work out, or none of this did what you expected it to, so really you should have just been paying even more attention. And that, I just don't want to release anything because I don't actually know what's important anymore. So I just got to get stuff out so that I can clear the space to actually think about these things with more fresh eyes, because right now I just have so much clutter and so much stuff that's partially finished. Yeah. Oh, I see. A couple of folks in chat chipped in to say that Dave's rant was about, quote, Patreon is an unsustainable business, which is funny because, like, from my perspective, that's the line that you would see, like, the toxic Silicon Valley investor culture putting out there, like the folks who want, like, you know, quadratic growth or whatever instead of just something sustainable. Because, you know, I feel like Patreon is something that could be extremely sustainable if they would just stop shooting themselves in the foot. So, like, and I don't know whether Dave means that literally or whether he's trying to poke fun at that way of thinking or what, but like, that would be my immediate response to just hearing the title of it. So. And Station 240 says they're glad that I'm back to editing videos, which I appreciate the sentiment, and I'm glad that folks appreciate the edits. At the same time, I feel like folks don't really see what goes on behind most of this. Like, it's not like I stopped editing videos. I've been trying to get these out for a long time. It's just that you're seeing me finally actually kick them out the door. So yeah, like, it's not like I was just, you know, on vacation or whatever. I've been trying to get this stuff out. I've just been, like, mostly failing, and so that's what you're seeing. It's been frustrating, and it feels like I'm not living up to my own expectations or anybody else's. But this cat's pretty great. Yeah, some of my personal frustrations with Patreon are that they're trying to make it too much of a, like, portal kind of thing, when I feel like that's really not their core strength. Like, I don't know how many of you, like, listening right now, either live or in the archives, are patrons of me or patrons of other people or run your own Patreons, and so, like, how much of this experience translates. I feel like I just, like, don't like being logged into the site. I feel like it's not an experience that I like. I feel like it's really stressful. I feel like it's kind of, it makes it hard for me to control which notifications I see and how I actually deal with incoming stuff. And, like, it would help even to have, like, a separate UI to use for, like, producing content and consuming content. Like, even not really having those separate is, like, it's like really kind of frustrating. It's like, as much as YouTube has their own UI problems, having a bit of a split between the, like, creator tools and the browsing tools on the YouTube end seems like it's been positive. And so yeah, I feel like as a creator, it's stressful being logged in, and I just find it a really like brain hostile kind of way of interacting with a large group of fans, you know? And then on the like, you know, content consumption side, you know, I back a bunch of people on Patreon, and I mean, now that I'm logged in more often on Patreon just for like the creator stuff, then I guess like I use that for browsing more often. But like usually the model for like consuming stuff on Patreon, for me at least, is I get an email with somebody's Patreon post, and then I can click the link in the email and see their content. And then, you know, if I'm on my phone, usually I'm not logged into Patreon, and I have to like log in, and like often I don't do that, and I'll just like zoom into the tiny preview in the email, which doesn't actually like look like I've actually clicked on the post, I'm sure, like from their metrics. And so yeah, it's kind of a mess, and I feel like they're not doing a great job at being a content portal for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why. I don't know whether it's like login friction, or whether it's like the interaction model, or whether it's just like maybe I'm alone and maybe everyone else finds it's a great content portal, but like from my perspective, I found it to be kind of frustrating as a content portal. And then it's great as like a subscription manager. I think that's awesome. Like they should just focus on being like a subscription manager. But I you know, they probably see that as being something that's easy to commodify, and so they want to like dig their heels into something else. And so I'm just worried that they're going to bust it all trying to become a business model that no one else can copy, because I'd rather just see more people doing the same thing. I feel like I hope we do see more people doing a similar thing as Patreon. I mean, right now the bottleneck is really payment processors, but I could rant for a while. Also, I don't know why I'm drinking coffee at 7 p.m., but I'm sure that helps with the rant. Yeah, I guess I'm not the only one who doesn't like the Patreon site, all right? Oh yeah, and Drip is interesting. I was seeing bits of that. I think I was on their email list for a while. I don't know if I still am, but yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I haven't had great feelings about Drip so far, mostly because it just seems like they've been really into taunting it as this exclusive thing that isn't available yet without actually showing me what it is. But maybe my feelings about it will change once it's actually a real thing. So, you know. Comment was server crashes. Oh, you mean Patreon? Not Diode Zone, right? Gotta knock on wood here. Not that this is wood. That's probably bad luck, right? But is there some wood to knock on? I'm in a very artificial setting right here. Here I am looking for wood, and I'm just noticing like sparkly bits of broken whatever. What is that? I was worried that there was broken glass over here, because I did actually break a glass recently, but I think it's actually... Oh, and then I thought it was a backing for an earring, but it's actually a weird, funky bit of solder, which is not something you'd want to put in your ear. That's bad. I've been trying to keep my solder stuff really well quarantined lately, so it's disturbing seeing a bit of it over there. Yeah, Diode Zone's been pretty reliable lately. The last couple of problems with it have been relatively short-lived, just like an hour or two at the most, and they've been because of my ISP going down, which is frustrating, but I can't really complain because I don't have like an enterprise-grade ISP around here. I'm paying for the relatively cheap gigabit, so... Yeah, but it is gigabit. Anyway. Go back to on-topic mode. You want this toque? Oh, toque's on the desk. We can see Tuco. Oh, I'm gonna have to relearn where all these buttons are. I don't think he cares. We'll find out. Is my tablet still low battery? Yeah. Gosh. I wonder what the solution for that is. I don't know. if I have this tablet with a busted battery and I mostly use it as a stationary device, I wonder if maybe I just rewire the power supply slightly. All right, so anyway, this was a gift from Tim Ansel. Let's take this out. These are somewhat early devices. I don't think they even have like a bootloader programmed or any QA. So they're a bit as is, but he thought that myself or some of you would find these interesting. Oh, I see. The tape on top has little cases. These look like little injection molded clear plastic doohickeys. And then here we've got a bunch of little pockets in here. Is this one open? I think they're all sealed. I'll have to open one of these. I didn't catch the big game, but I heard it wasn't so great. There's so little. Slightly stuck in there. Whoa! Ah, it's so small. Yeah, so it's the Fomu. We'll take a look at the webpage for it in just a sec. There was another one, I believe it was called the Tomu, if I'm remembering it right. And so these are both projects by Tim Ansel. And the Tomu, if I remember it right, was an ARM, I think like Cortex M4, that's designed to be very tiny and fits inside your USB port. And this is the same deal, but with an FPGA. And specifically, this is an ICE40 compatible FPGA, or it's one of the lattice ICE40 series. Or is it the ICE40? I'm actually forgetting whether it was the ICE40 or one of the very similar but lower power lines. But anyway, it's a lattice FPGA that works with the open source toolchain. It's low power. You can see at the top there, I think those are DC-DC, or no, those aren't DC-DC. Those are just linear regulators, but there's 3 separate discrete linear regulators with capacitors. And then FPGA, and then to the left of the FPGA, I think that's flash. I don't think this has RAM. I mean external RAM. Maybe it does have external RAM, actually. Ah, I think that is actually RAM, and then the one on the bottom right is the oscillator. We're going to have to look at the documentation for this, of course, but yeah, it is a very tiny FPGA board that's designed to fit inside your USB port and be programmable using open source technology. So open source, Verilog compiler, place and route, all of that jazz. This is really little. Let's go briefly to the website to look and get our bearings, and then we'll come back to the microscope and take a proper look at this. I will try to actually keep an eye on chat too. Overthinking things. That's the name of the game, unfortunately. It is nice to not overthink things. I like that sometimes. Can we have fewer overlays? The overlays are nice. I'm just tired of them right now. Let's see, that's the DSLR. The bottom right is the isopod stream, which you can get on your own if you like it by going to live.diode.zone/isopod or isopod. But yeah, usually they're not, you know, super active. Occasionally you catch one running through the microscope area. I'll sometimes put out food for them and put it out under the microscope, which until they drag it elsewhere is usually pretty interesting. And then, you know, occasionally you'll see them wandering around in this wider angle view, but we don't need that right now. Yeah, so Shufel's wondering if what this could be used for, if this could like output stuff over USB. Yeah, we'll take a look at the website, but I think the USB D+ and D- are connected directly to the FPGA. So just like with the tiny FPGA boards, there's a bootloader which is resident in the non-volatile memory, either on the external flash or programmed into the FPGA. And then that bootloader could use the you know, that bootloader would implement an sorry, I'm tripping over my words here. The bootloader would get loaded into the FPGA first. That would then implement a USB device which you can talk to in order to load the actual FPGA design into Flash. And then you would reboot the FPGA using a different like configuration slot, which is what kind of makes this possible. And then it would boot the actual design that you uploaded. So this relies on having an FPGA that can boot one of several designs and then storage for multiple designs. And then one of those designs can be a bootloader. And then, yeah, once you've uploaded your regular design and got that running, then you're in control of the D+ and D- lines right out to the USB port. So you could implement whatever device you've got space for in the FPGA. Yeah, is this it? Cool, a custom plastic enclosure that slots perfectly into USB port. 128K of RAM. That's going to be external, right? That's bigger than the block RAMs, right? I think so. That's my guess at this point. UP5K FPGA. So yeah, that's very nice. So because these are early models direct from Tim, they will need the bootloader installed, which we'll have to do that. So we could do that, I think, various ways. Like I've got some pogo pins. We could just make a quick pogo pin jig by hand, or maybe we could design a 3D model for a 3D printable pogo pin jig that maybe other people would find useful too. It does have an external oscillator and SPI flash. Yeah, I think this is the block RAM. I don't think it's got separate RAM, but I could be mistaken. Okay, the Tomu had this EFM32 Gecko chip. Cool. Oops. Ah, responsive. I was just trying to zoom in and the page reflowed. There we go. So yeah, that's the ARM-based Tomu and the FPGA-based Fomu. Oh, interesting. It's got 4 copper pads near the edge, which might be useful for capacitive touch. Cool. And comparison with the icebreaker, which we were using on several earlier streams, thanks to Pewit. The tablet here is about to run out of battery. I'm going to be a little hard to reach on chat other than the Gitter tonight, unfortunately. Yeah, this is a nice comparison, just between a few boards that you might have seen. We've been using the Icebreaker on these streams. That was the one that I just released the 4-part video on the FPGA LED matrix with. And then I got a couple of the tiny FPGA BX. We have not used them yet, but they're a really interesting board. And they use a similar bootloader scheme. It might even be the same bootloader. Different chips, so probably not exactly the same bootloader. And so it has, are those 2 separate pads? 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then did I see power in the back? Oh. Stretch. Yeah, well, this is great. Well, and also just to clarify, it looks like, just from my skimming of what's going on here, that Tim is the one who made the original Tomu. I think Tim's also been helping out with the manufacturing side of this. But then this project is actually by Sutajio Kosagi. So this is cool. Looking forward to, there's a lot of these here. I forget how many. I think this is like 50 of them. So we'll have a few to play with here. But I should really set up some way of doing like giveaways on these streams. So we'll have to think about how to do that and how to get some more hardware from my shop into all of your hands in some kind of manner. So I'm excited about that. Let's look at this under the microscope. Oh, this is a little nicer. I've got my little portable microscope situation here with the new enclosure, and the cable goes off to the mess over there. Oh, are those test points even labeled? Gosh, that FPGA is tiny. Just a single letter to identify all the test points. That's pretty interesting, right? Like you can kind of see 2 parts inside of whatever that package is. Is that the oscillator? So tiny. Yeah, I mean, so like it's obvious that the middle one is the FPGA and the top 3 are voltage regulators, but of these other 3, I know that one of them is an oscillator, one of them is going to be flash memory. I'm not sure what the 3rd one is. I didn't think it had a separate RAM. Maybe Maybe I'm wrong about that. Let's find a schematic if there's a schematic. Is there anything on the other side? Oh, there's more of a label visible on that bottom right chip under this magnification. I mean, I'm gonna guess that the bottom left one is flash, and the bottom right one is the oscillator. But I don't know what this little critter right there is, unless that's maybe a reset circuit. Oh, maybe it's a multicolor LED. That would be a, I've never seen an LED in a package like that. Oh yeah, and in the back is just the USB port itself and some additional pads. So we've got 3.3 volts, ground, and then 4 general purpose IOs that you can solder stuff to if you want. It is very small. This is a very cute design. The whole thing fits inside the USB plug, which we could demonstrate here. So as I mentioned, this doesn't have the bootloader installed, so if we plugged this in, we probably wouldn't see it do anything. We could probably see it draw a little bit of power if we had a power monitor, but this is so power efficient that might even be hard to detect. So we would need to build a programming jig, or just kind of one-off attach some wires and then unattach them if we were going to program these and use them, which I'd like to. So it does seem like the next step is maybe to build or find a programming jig. So I don't know whether there's an existing design for like a pogo pin jig, but that would be something to build. I think that's kind of the orientation, but upside down. All right. Looks like it was trying to snap in there. That's cool. Let's try to illustrate the fit. Fomu version 0.0. Yeah, the traces are, everything is so tiny and small about this, really. So, okay. So it is trying to snap in there. Gave it a little help, and now it's actually snapped in. Oh, the cutaway picture? Let's... it would actually be cool to find a picture of this board with the parts all labeled. I was checking to see whether that existed. Oh, there it is, the 3D view of the PCB. That's really cool. This. Oops. I keep trying to make this bigger, and then at some point it just reflows and the layout changes. Oh, the layout changes so that it actually hides almost the entire page. That's not what I wanted. That's pretty neat. Okay, I'm going to get a little USB extension cable we can plug this into just to examine the fit. Maybe better than an extension actually would be like a port on an object here. We can see how it sticks out. So it's a port. That's pretty neat. Maybe get some footage of this in a laptop or something. Anyway, I'm sure we'll be doing a lot more with these. And it'll be more interesting once there's a bootloader on there. But yeah, cool board. And yeah, thanks so much for the hardware, Tim. I'm excited about doing some stuff with these on video and giving some of these away and maybe designing a bootloader programming jig for them. Yeah, at least, I don't know, I mean, different ports are maybe going to be different, but getting it out isn't too bad. It's got these little ridges on the side that actually make it pretty easy to grab. That is actually not bad. It's pretty satisfying grip. You could solder stuff, solder wires to it while it's in your laptop. Cool. Well, that's exciting. Oh, well, thank you. Let's put these aside and move on to another little topic for this little stream. Oh, Tuco's on the desk again. Or maybe he never left. Maybe I just forgot he was over there. All right. Well, so actually, we were kind of ranting about rants or whatever a little earlier. I was actually going to go on a very minor rant on the stream on purpose. Hope I don't scare you all away, but so as I mentioned, I had a bit, whoops. There's enough of a delay in pressing these buttons that sometimes I press the wrong one and then I don't realize. So I was moving stuff around. There's a bunch of equipment, there's some USB hubs. I was rearranging all the USB hubs, and I was setting up these cords, and just realizing that this is like not really up to my own personal electrical safety standards. you know, these, so let's take a closer look. This genre of stream could be considered shitposting about UL, I guess. I just generally don't like the electrical regulation compliance of a lot of products, and then it feels like we don't even get the good electrical regulations, like we don't have shuttered plugs or fuses in plugs or anything like that, or, you know, RCDs like on the circuit, we don't get any of that here. And I was complaining about this on Twitter, and actually some people were like, yeah, that's terrible. And then some people were like, well, what's the problem? It only draws 1 amp, and 20 gauge wire is fine for something that only draws like 1 amp. And as with a lot of these things, it's not really about whether something works when it's functioning as intended, but like what it's, you know, if you were to try to come up with like a diagram of all the possible failures and like how likely they are, it's really about what the shape of that is. It's like, does this product introduce significant amounts of extra risk into your life just by being connected to mains, you know? Does this make other products that weren't necessarily safety critical all of a sudden more of a safety critical deal, you know? And so with a wire like this actually came with a device which had a UL rated power supply, and in fact this plug has a UL rating on it, which I don't even know how they would get, because this is designed to plug into a 15 amp circuit. This is a, you know, whatever this NMEA connector is, it's designed to handle a circuit which will deliver 15 amps before its breaker blows. And even if you're plugging this into some equipment which is fused, which has maybe like a 1 amp or 2 amp fuse in it, if that piece of equipment is perfectly safe, then somebody could still like close a filing cabinet on this cable and short it out in the middle, and now all of a sudden this whole thing is now a several 100-watt heater, and it's going to fail at some point and probably just melt the insulation and give you a giant smoky mess, but it could pretty easily start a fire from that point. And so like that's a good part of the reason why you don't want to cheap out on wires, even if the device you're powering is pretty low power, because if the wire breaks, you're suddenly putting all the power that's available in that circuit through that wire. And if the wire is not flimsy, like if it's a heavier gauge, maybe it heats up a little bit and then your breaker trips. But if it's a really flimsy wire, like this is kind of borderline as far as I'm concerned, then the wire heats up, the breaker doesn't trip, and it starts a fire. So that's not so good. So I'm not planning on using these. I got some heavier gauge replacement wires, but just figured we would like look at what's actually in these. And I went to look at the product page for these, and I don't think they sell the same kind of power adapter still. So, you know, I think this is the USB hub, I think. And I think they even changed the model very slightly. So, like this doesn't quite even look like the same enclosure. I think they revved that a little. And the power supply is different, in fact. If you look at the power supply, this seems to come with, there's only this tiny picture, but it's got this big old bricky thing that you plug into the wall, which is like, it's good and bad, right? You've eliminated the cord with the high voltage on it in the first place, so there is no part for them to fail, and as long as this brick is well designed and properly certified and whatever, you're probably fine. But the problem with that is now you've got this giant unwieldy thing that's not going to fit on any normal wall outlet, and you probably got to put some kind of extension on it anyway, and now that extension is a bit of a liability. So I would be happy with this because I got a bunch of decent quality 1 foot long extension cords for situations like this, but it's just putting another kind of another dependency on the consumer, and you hope that they do the thing right and don't cause a safety problem. So yeah, the power supply itself seemed to be fine. It didn't seem overly tiny. It had what claimed to be a UL certification. Someone on Twitter even looked it up and it seemed real. So I don't think the power supply is necessarily sketchy, although I haven't actually opened it up, but the cord definitely was. And looks like they're at least not doing that anymore. I mean, this looks like it's at least, you know, not, like this looks like it is actually 20 gauge. I don't think they're lying about the gauge here, but like, I wouldn't want to use this direct to mains, really. And I mean, we were also talking about electrical regulations on Twitter, and like, it isn't even really clear whether this is against electrical codes. Like maybe UL will actually certify a 20 gauge mains cable, but it just doesn't seem safe. And like, yeah, I don't know. We didn't actually try looking up the UL mark on here, but it claims to have one. And you see this a lot in old appliances, especially like old lamps. They'll have really thin wires, and they're just not good. Like, you don't really see them made like that anymore. It's not really clear whether it's illegal to make them and sell them here, or, you know, did the regulations change, or did the manufacturers just realize that a couple of extra cents of copper was a good insurance plan? But yeah, that's the plug. And then this does have labelings along the length. 20 gauge, 105. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to be like fraudulent, just tiny, you know, but I wouldn't use these, so I was gonna throw these out or just use them for scrap wire. Just thought I would briefly complain about them on stream first. And that was going to be a lead-in to something else to complain about, which I am going to take apart. And that is this one. This one seems more obviously bad. So what do we got here? Switching power supply does not claim to have any certification. So like these icons here, these are not certification marks. Just in case you're not familiar with these, this means it's double insulated, which just means that there's an outer enclosure and the inner wiring has at least one additional layer of insulation. It's also got some, I think, requirements for spacing lengths, things like that on the circuit board. There's a real specification behind this in terms of how good the insulation is, so it's unclear whether they're really living up to that, but mostly what is meant by this is that the device has a plastic enclosure and doesn't need a separate ground and has enough internal insulation to avoid needing that. The actual specification for how much insulation is required, though, it's not clear that they're actually going to be doing that, but it's the intent. And then it's intended to be used indoors, which is great. It's not an outdoor 12-volt power supply, and don't throw it away. It's e-waste because they probably loaded it with lead. So anyway, this thing came with like a cheap LCD monitor that I got, and the monitor seems fine. I'm using the monitor with a different power supply. It seems to be doing pretty great. I was going to show which one that was too. It's this one. So I was looking for a low-cost, small form factor display to use for I'm actually using this for my streaming iPod machine in the closet, because I wanted to be able to see the outgoing stream at full resolution, but I don't have a lot of space in there. And a lot of small displays tend to run on the expensive side because they're designed for high-end photography, and so I was looking for something that was a little bit more budget-oriented than that. And this seemed alright, except that it comes with this dodgy AC adapter. So, dodgy AC adapter. I haven't actually measured how much power the display uses in practice. It's labeled kind of confusingly. It says both 12 watts and 12 volts at 2 amps, which is kind of contradictory. 12 volts at 2 amps should be 24 watts. So, and it matches the power brick, which is labeled 12 volts at 2 amps. But this is the lightest 24-watt power adapter I have ever felt. So I'm very skeptical that this could actually safely handle 24 watts for any length of time. So I'm gonna save this cable for something else. And let's open this up and see how terrible it is. Or not, maybe it'll surprise us. But at this weight, and without any kind of safety claims on there, it has no UL, or it doesn't even have the fake CE mark, so. Oh Just that was the smack that broke the zip tie that was holding my alcohol bottle over here. My isopropanol bottle, not my. I don't have like a dedicated booze holder or anything. Man, a lot of people like to make fun of products for being Chinese, but I'd rather make fun of them for being really cheap and deceptive. You know? Because I think you find that all over. It's just that right now most of our manufactured electronic goods come from China, so like that's just kind of a baseline. You see a lot of really good stuff made in China too, because that's just where stuff is usually made by volume. I rant about that too sometimes, that like a lot of people, like I would actually be really into having more local manufacturing. It's just that a lot of people who get really nationalistic about manufacturing just don't understand how much we're missing locally, at least in the US. I mean, I don't know as much about other countries, but there's just a huge electronic supply chain that you can find, like in Shenzhen, for example, that around here you would just, you know, you'd have to go all around the country and pay a lot more and still not be able to find a lot of the parts or expertise you need. But yes, this is a very cheaply made, somewhat deceptive consumer product, which happens to come from China. Oh, there it goes. I thought there was another screw under here, but it's just got like a clip or something. So yeah, this is like a common power brick enclosure that you see a lot of power bricks using. I don't usually look at the molds for these things, but I wonder if that tells any stories. Yeah, it looks like an injection molded plastic part. I mean, I'm noticing the different finishes, but you know, I don't have anything intelligent to say about it other than look at them injector pins. Ejector pins. Injector pins? I think those are different. All right. Oh gosh. Yeah. They're just like, well, we had a design for a 2-watt power supply and we needed 24-watt. Just throw a bigger diode and a bigger transformer in there. She'll be right. Watch out for capacitors. I've never plugged this thing in, but yeah, I guess we should discharge them or measure the voltage. But like, yeah, I've never plugged this in. It's been sitting in a warehouse unpowered for a long time. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with the plastic. Like, it just seems like a very generic enclosure. Sometimes the joint between these pins and the enclosure will fail on these really cheap power supplies. Doesn't seem obviously bad here, though. 0 volts. 0 volts. Yeah. Whew. Well, so they've got the isolation kind of clearly marked. It's got more circuit board isolation than you see on a lot of these power supplies. But of course, the isolation really comes down to the parts that cross the isolation. So, you know, it's kind of hard to screw up an optocoupler. At least I haven't seen that be a failure mode. But the transformers, sometimes you'll see those wound with low quality isolation. Sometimes these are not actually safety rated capacitors, which is what I was about to check. Oh, that does say Y1, which is at least the safety rating I think you'd want for this. Let's look closer at that, actually. I think there are different voltage ratings for X and Y. I can't actually tell you what all the different capacitor safety ratings mean off the top of my head, but they relate to how the capacitor is designed to be connected to mains. And if I remember right, Y1 is the right rating for a capacitor that's connected in an isolation capacity like this. So that at least claims to be all right. And then the overall design of the power supply. It's got this tiny 3-pin switching controller down here. So like the control side is going to be on the low side. So you've got an isolation boundary. You've got the mains voltage over here. You've got 12 volts over here. You want to have a circuit over on this side that monitors the output voltage and adjusts the duty cycle of the switching on this side. So they've got one switching controller over here, which is not labeled, but there are a couple of designs that are really common, so we could probably figure out which one this is. But yeah, it's unlabeled, but little 8-pin switcher controller. That's going to be, does that have the transistor also? So that's going to have the switching element in it also, because I don't see a separate transistor. So just, maybe we'll just go through how the circuit works. So we've got the mains connected here. It's going through a bridge rectifier to charge a capacitor to get a high DC voltage to start out with. Normally you'd see a fuse here. They've opted for this fusible resistor, which is it's like kind of common in these inexpensive power supplies. It's not clear that this is definitely a safety problem, but it's like a sign that they're cheaping out on safety features a little bit. Because normally you would have a separate fuse and an inrush limiting resistor maybe. But here you just have a single resistor which is designed to be used as a fuse also. But that's pretty common. I'm not sure if it's actually that bad, but it's there. So then that AC voltage gets rectified to DC by this little bridge rectifier. That charges this capacitor. This is the zappy bit. Like this will hold dangerous amounts of energy during normal operation or after you've just unplugged it. So that's like what you would want to discharge if you were going to go into one of these supplies after it's been plugged in. Only 10 microfarad, which is pretty small. But yeah, 400 volts. That will give you a somewhat smooth DC voltage, which then looks like this is going to be like a low voltage power supply smoothing capacitor for the switching controller. Yeah, 47 mic at 25 volts. So this is going to have some kind of little like bootstrap regulator thing to generate a low voltage for its own use, and that's probably for stabilizing that. And then we've got an external diode and some external resistors and capacitors. But yeah, most of the switching is happening in here. So that's going to have a MOSFET to actually switch that DC voltage on and off and generate this high frequency square wave that goes through this transformer. I don't know what this capacitor is either. That's kind of weird. And then this little U1 over here, we've got a SOT23. Oh yeah, a TL431. Yeah, that's a good point. Station 240 points out that it could be a TL431, which is a really common voltage reference chip. So yeah, because this circuit would need to compare that with a reference voltage and then send like a, so you need like a reference and a comparator, which I guess is maybe what that chip is. And then the output of that reference plus comparator would go over this optocoupler. This is an LED and a phototransistor, so it's a way of getting a single bit of information over that isolation gap. So you're sending that 1-bit signal, which is basically like, are we at the right voltage? Are we over or are we under? And you're kind of modulating that to hit the right voltage. So you're sending that kind of over-under signal across the isolation through the optocoupler to the switching controller, which uses that to adjust the pulse width modulation. So that's the basic idea. It's like a very, very simple design. Probably not going to be the highest efficiency, and it's unclear how this is going to sustain 2 amps really. Because I'm guessing this diode is probably rated at like 2 amps based on its size. And I would expect the diode to have more current to deal with than the output, but I don't know. Maybe it's fine. Like, I mean, it doesn't have the safety ratings. It's kind of small and cheesy, but it's unclear whether it would actually fail at 2 amps without testing it and putting the thermal camera on it. So maybe we do that. I don't know how much we care about it. The other thing we could do, though, is destructively tear down the transformer to look at the isolation. Well, we could do first one, then the other. Oh, I don't know. What do you think? See if this thing will succeed at 2 amps. I don't know. I don't know what kind of channel to make this, right? It's like, this was something I wanted to take apart and look at briefly. We can examine the safety features. I think some channels would want to just like test this until it explodes, but I don't have like a great place to do that here, nor is it really my inclination. Like, we could power it up, we could try to put a dummy load on it and just look at the temperatures. It's got an extra spot for an LED up there. I think I would find it more interesting to take apart the transformer, though. Didn't know lows made capacitors. I think it's low ESR, but... Well, yeah, maybe... My hesitation about doing the physical, like, power test is my shop is a mess right now, and I don't actually know where all the pieces I would need to do that are. I think I've got some, like, heater wire we could use as a dummy load. I would also want an AC power meter. And the last time I looked for my AC power meter on the stream, it was coming up empty, so I might have to get back to that. Anyway, let me check on chat just to see if anybody has stuff that they have been dying to tell me, but we could also wrap this up because this doesn't need to be a long stream. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about Diode Zone on this stream. The Twitch chat is empty. That's cool. All right, well, let me take a brief look for some equipment to test this with, but I'm not going to dwell on that too long, and then we can talk about Diode Zone a little bit, and then I'll wrap this up. we can do this. Got a kilowatt and a thermal camera. A somewhat non-cat safe extension cord that we can use temporarily. Heating wire. Okay. so lazy with the wire stripping. I kind of wanted those to be at different places, though. That's totally intentional. Can't pull that through the strain relief counter. That is pretty stuck on. Great time to have more of my test leads organized. See if we can even get this slightly set up. That in there. Setup just looks so safe, doesn't it? With a meter that is not a clamp meter. But this is probably enough for the number of fucks I'm giving right now. Okay, let's try this without any load first. Just unclip that wire from the heating wire up there. Zero the somewhat dubious clamp meter. That's connected-ish. Alright, and the kilowatt unfortunately powers up into voltage mode, so I will have to poke the watt button, but I think we can do that safely. rearrange stuff so that I can get to an outlet from where I'm at. Yeah, no, sometimes the molded on cable strain reliefs, you can still kind of slide them off because that second molding step doesn't get as hot as the original cable melt. Okay, so I'm just testing. I can turn this on and off. I'm going to use that switch to turn this on after I plug this in. Right. Contact. 12 volts. No amps. Pretty much no watts. Okay. That off. Let's try adding a load. Touching only this wire. Not really sure what this is going to be. I'm just going to turn it on and see. Too much load. It was actually going into cycling, which is cool. Untangle my heater wire a little bit. Oh gosh, I should really have a better dummy load situation, but this is what was handy. I told you I wasn't really prepared for this. Okay, so I'm going to give it a longer section of wire. That all still looks good. Contact. Okay, 1 amp now at 12 volts. Good. Let's turn this off for now, and then let's get the thermal camera ready. And try to cut that distance in half. We can get more than like 2 amps. Everything's cold except for my microscope. Does that even focus? It keeps being on the project to-do list to have a streamable thermal camera. And I think the route to doing that is to modify one of the old donated FLIR 1 cameras that we have so that we can stream from them. So, okay. we can do the thing. Oh, except for the glare. Okay. Contact. Doesn't look like that was working. One and a half amps. Holding 12 volts. Can we get a little higher? 1.7 amps, and then it cuts out. This is definitely not a 2 amp power supply. Can we sustain 1.6 amps? So that's my heating wire. And that's the power supply. The switcher chip is already getting kind of toasty. You're mostly just seeing the shop temperature. This camera doesn't actually let you measure the temperature of individual pixels. It's got a separate thermal sensor. So I couldn't really tell you how hot that is without... Did it just go into overvoltage? Oh yeah, it is cutting off. That's interesting. The meter was going into overvoltage, but I couldn't tell whether that was just because of the ranging. I'm going to try that again, but use the meter as min-max to try to capture any voltage transients. So I'm going to set the manual range to 60 volts, and then go into max hold mode. So this will look at the peak voltage. And the whole power supply is still pretty toasty. In fact, I'm a little worried about that yellow alligator clip. I'm going to maybe move that away from the transformer before we continue this test. It'd be cool if I had a 5th clip on that clippy thing. Maybe I will just... that. I think that's still good. Let's reset this. Okay, let's try it again. Contact. Wake up, thermal cam. Oh yeah, and then on the input, we really did want to be measuring watts there. Oh, that's interesting. 23 watts on the input. 1.6 amps on the output. It's not a very efficient supply, huh? That's getting kind of warm. Yeah, the output is cycling on and off now. It doesn't overvolt, though, which is nice. But it doesn't... It's not even keeping up with the sustained point at 1.6 amps on the output, and it's drawing 24 watts. So yeah, it's not actually a 2 amp supply, and it's pretty inefficient. So yeah, peak maximum power output sounds about right, except I couldn't even get it to turn on with 2 amps connected. So I'm thinking it's more like either the two arm. So yeah, not so great. Maybe let's discharge the capacitors and unwind the transformer. Gotta put away this power strip before my cat eats it. My cat really likes chomping on like extension cords and stuff, so I have to keep them all really carefully covered or put away. And let this cool off a little bit. Yeah. The transformer and the switcher were both getting pretty warm. It was a little hard to tell because I've got a really low res thermal camera, but yeah, the transformer was almost certainly saturating. It's also possible this clamp meter is not extremely accurate, but it's probably accurate enough to see that that wasn't getting anywhere near 2 amps. Let's carefully probe the voltage on that primary capacitor just to see how much of a zappy it's going to still have for us. Not much, 1 volt. So they've got some kind of bleeder set up over there, which is nice. And the secondary's got nothing. So yeah, let's just short those out just for good measure. Yeah, now it's down to 0. Alright, I think I'm just going to get out my big old desoldering gun. Oh, the camera's dodging our perfectly good view of Tuco right now. There's Tuco. Good cat. Looks like a fast food wrapper or something on my desk, but that's like DigiKey packaging. Kind of makes me want a burger or something. Alright, so speaking of slightly sketchy electronics products, I'm about to plug in this desoldering iron, which is not a thing that I would really want to leave plugged in. That's warming up. This is the S993A desoldering gun, which is very popular. Also has a thin, sketchy cord, and I'm sure I would find other safety features to, you know, to miss inside it. So I'm just warming this up so we can desolder the transformer, and then I can unwind the transformer a little bit and we can look at the isolation in there. But I've been trying to keep all the like leaded soldering stuff quarantined a bit in my shop, and so I've got all the doodads for this in a separate box. I'm getting them out. I learned recently that isopods actually are pretty good at kind of sequestering heavy metals into a form which is not as toxic. Seems nice. They're like one of the animals that can do that in the environment. Oh, measure the core. That's a good idea. You mean just like physically or like inductance? Good night, Shufel. Nice to see you here. Alright, is this warm? It's certainly on. Sometimes I like to have some fresh solder to add to these, but let's just try doing this without. Oh, there we go. Just taking off the wires first. Just so the board would be a little easier to deal with. So the nice thing about this desoldering gun is the stuff just kind of comes right out. It's pretty powerful. Oh, that's an interesting question. I'm always wondering about the texture of Tuco's hair. Let me answer that in just a sec. I might need to add some fresh solder to wet the joints a little bit. My shop is definitely in this state of disorganization. That's been getting in the way. And I'm working on that. It's just kind of a gradual process. So yeah, Emily was asking if Tuco has more fluffy or bristly fur. I think I know what you mean. He's kind of like short but fluffy. He doesn't have that kind of like, I don't know. You know how some like long hair cats, their fur is like, it's like kind of bushy, but it also like kind of sticks to your hand very slightly. Whereas other cats, their fur is kind of like smooth. And so I think Tuco's hair is kind of more the smooth kind. He's also really short-haired. So yeah, Tuco has very thick, but also very short hair. It doesn't get very long. Like, it's enough to run your fingers through, but only just barely. There's a cat that lives down the hall with one of my neighbors who's super fluffy. It's a great cat. It's like one of the biggest cats I've seen too. Very fluffy fur. Ow. Oh gosh. Camera arm just took a whole bunch of my hair. Thanks, camera. That must be why it doesn't grow that long in the front, right? Just keep leaning over and the camera takes another couple of bits. I haven't had long hair for that long. Like I've basically just been growing it out continuously for the past couple of years and haven't been getting it cut. It's like the longest it's ever been, which is nice, but also there keep being these different stages of annoyance where it's really long in most places and then not long enough to be out of the way in other places. Alright, can we put this in a vise? Oh, I was just making that noise because I was thinking, but Tuco tends to assume I'm making clicking noises to get his attention. He perked up a bit. I'm thinking about you, Tuke. I have to grab this board kind of by one edge while I yank off the transformer. That's the Y cap, but as well. Just desolder everything. You know, I don't know how to test a Y cap. I don't know if there really is a good way to test them other than like destructively and in aggregate. But I'm curious about that. This is the audio cover. I mean, it's rated for 400 volts. I have a insulation tester that goes up that high. But I don't know if it's as simple as just charging it up, and like you probably need to measure leakage somehow. I think that was the last of the transformer pins. Yeah, so it just comes right out. I can unplug the sketchy desoldering gun now. Okay, so got the transformer from that 2 amp power supply. Oh wait, AWS, come on. All right. God, maybe I'll wear gloves for this. I think I'll try to do this part. I don't know. I was going to do it under the microscope, maybe at low magnification, but it also means I've got to start up the microscope recorder when I've already got the DSLR going. Maybe I can just do it at this magnification. I really need to get another viewfinder. Not totally sure what the purpose of that piece of tape is. Is that all that's holding the two halves together? It doesn't seem like it could be. I guess, are they just taped and glued together? Maybe the tape was to hold it while the glue cures. It looks like those halves are glued. I'm guessing if I kind of squish this with the vise, it would probably crack the core, but it might also crack that glue joint and it would come apart. Oh, these tweezers have seen better days. I think we want to destructively disassemble this core. Like we could unwrap it without destructively disassembling it maybe, but only partially and not very well. Oh, well, which side is the secondary and which is the primary? It looks like the one with 2 pins is the secondary. Oh, the 3rd pin on the primary side, I think that's a, that winding is for powering the switching controller. So this is the primary side connected to the mains. This is the secondary side connected to all the devices you have plugged into your monitor. Because this is intended to be a power supply for a monitor, so like this is connecting, like this is what's between mains and the ground pin on whatever you have plugged into the HDMI connector on your monitor. So we're seeing the secondary winding on the outside here. Are we seeing the secondary and the primary winding on the same part of the spool? What's going on here? Oh, I'm misunderstanding. So that's the secondary, which is going up to, I think, that layer. I don't see any isolation between the primary and the secondary other than the enamel. But maybe I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm just trying to gauge based on where the wires are going, and it looks like they're going to the same layer, and I don't see where else they could be going, but let's actually take this apart. Alright, so I'm going to cut, this is the secondary. Because this is a step down, the secondary should be fewer turns. It might just be, okay, yeah, I think it's just a one layer secondary, and then the primary is below that layer of tape there. So we get at least the enamel plus a layer of tape, which is, I think, the minimum you would want. You know, usually you have more, but these really cheap transformers, often that's all you get. So yeah, we could just tediously unwind it this way and then get to the next layer. I think the way you actually get these two halves apart is to unglue them with a vise. My usual vise is actually holding the isopod microscope in place. I should fix that. So everything here is supposed to be basically 12 volts. This cable is where the 12 volts happens. Oh, interesting. Station 240 suggests heat to weaken the epoxy. That's cool. I wouldn't really want to put this in my kitchen oven, but I actually don't have like a shop reflow toaster, but if I needed one, they're pretty inexpensive. I could get one. In some way, this is actually more satisfying to unwind than it would be to break it apart. Kind of like this. We might break it apart after we expose the primary. I'm not unwinding the primary. Yeah, I just don't want to put epoxy in my kitchen oven. I'm not really into mixing shop and food chemicals, you know. And the closest thing I have here in the shop would be to use like my PC board preheat plate or my surface mount reflow air tool. I imagine I could just aim the surface mount air tool at it for a while and that would help. Maybe we'll do that soon. Okay, well that was the entire secondary. The secondary coil is now a straight piece of wire, mostly straight. I kinked it a little. I straightened my slinky. Yeah, somebody hands me a power supply on the street and I'm like, I straightened it for you. Alright, and then how about the primary? Oh, you know what? This has room for a center tapped primary, but I don't think it actually has one. It looks like those two posts are empty. So I think it just has a single secondary and a single primary. That's weird because the PCB seems like it's trying to use 3 of those pins. Huh. Oh, good, I'm glad I didn't use a movie reference that nobody in the audience would get. I would just feel old then. So yeah, we get this generous layer of tape. See, and this is for the secondary, that's not primary bits poking out. I'm just looking to see if there's any primary, because like this surface that you're seeing is the surface that the secondary was wound on. So like any exposed primary is where you might have a short circuit between the primary and the secondary, like right there. That's a little place where there's probably just enamel between the primary and the secondary. I don't know if you can see, but there's like this little turn where the wire goes under that. I think right there we have, that's the closest it comes to shorting. Not that it shorts, but you know, with isolation you're looking for where's the closest point. Oh, interesting. Station 240 says that the center tap is also used to interleave the primary so that you have half of it inside the secondary and half of it outside. I hadn't unwound a lot of transformers. This is maybe only like the second or third time I've done this. A half transformer like this is not a bad little electromagnet. You just need a little electromagnet for something. Huh. It looks like 1 1/3 of a turn or something like that. Also, check out the pattern the wire leaves in the tape. That's kind of interesting. It kind of looks like most of the tape has been squished out of the way even, and you've got just this little bit of tape in between the primary and the secondary. Yeah, yanking the wire out from the top does seem like it would be fun right about now. It's cool. Oh, and somebody wanted a mechanical measurement. Let's find, oh, here's the calipers. Do you want a mechanical measurement of the cord without any wire on it, I'm assuming? I mean, just for a sense of scale, this is like 20 millimeters. I'm guessing that's like an 8 millimeter core. Oh man. I mean, I could just turn this channel into Big Clive, but it's unclear that I should. I mean, he does a pretty good job of just taking apart power supplies and drawing on them. So I don't know if I'm going to aim for doing more of this. I just thought I would do it because I had a power supply handy that I didn't want, and I could take it apart. Yeah. Well, this seems like an alright place to wrap up the stream. Let me see if I can get any comments, if there's any chat that I missed. Is this computer still not going to turn on? Oh, it's starting to boot now. Now that the stream is about over, my chat tablet might be back. Oh, and this one's out of power now. Well, the tablet does seem to be trying to boot. That's cool. Why can't I log in? Oh, it's just taking a while. Yeah, just in time for the stream to be about over, I'll have my usual chat experience back. Oh yeah, way above expectations. Yeah, I feel that way too. Oh, that's right, the Diode Zone stuff. I forgot to talk about that too. Yeah, so let's do that before wrapping up. And yeah, this power supply, despite not meeting its ratings, did exceed my actual expectations. And it probably would have been just barely good enough to run that monitor. I just wouldn't have trusted its isolation connected to anything else, really. So yeah, well, that's cool. I might save this half transformer for electromagnet projects, but the rest of this is probably trash. Yeah, and so this is the product that came with this bad power supply, just in case anyone's wondering. I'm pretty happy with the screen itself. It just, I would not recommend anyone use the power brick, really. So, yeah. Anyway, there's more to do on future streams. Before I completely wrap up this one, though, I just wanted to point out how Diode Zone's been going. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here now. So I've got my whole back catalog, which is kind of what I started the server out with. But then Sean Hodgins, who you might know from the YouTubes, just uploaded a bunch of his back catalog. There's some other folks you might recognize from YouTube. Let's see, that's all Sean Hodgins. Oh yeah, Tan Newt, who also posts on YouTube, has been posting CircuitPython stuff on Diode Zone. All the weekly meetings, as well as this one I found really cool too. Most of these are like shorter format weekly streams, but this one was actually like a deep dive into the heap memory management algorithm used by CircuitPython, which is pretty cool. And these are on YouTube and on Diode Zone. Let's see, there's a couple of my recent releases. Oh, this is fun too. I think this was a edited video of all this cool like ink and fluid mixing to music. Where's the music coming through? Gotta worry about the copyright bots, but I think this is actually Creative Commons because it's on Diode Zone. Oh, I have the channel muted, but it's probably good. I'm really shy about music in general on the live streams because the copyright bot will just flag anything, but I think this is probably safe. Anyway, yeah, the selection of videos here has been pretty cool. I've been just really happy to see what people have been posting, and I'm happy to host videos that people want to, you know, try putting on a platform that is a little bit more under our control. Oh yeah. Cats. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to take a look at here. And then on the back end side, it's just been pretty much humming along. We've had a couple of, oh, am I logged out of here? Am I gonna have to log back in? Oh, cool. I did have the login saved on this machine. So yeah, this is just my local graphing infrastructure. So it's got plenty of bandwidth available, and the server, you know, I don't know, it's been interesting kind of figuring out like where are the bottlenecks in hosting videos online. When I first set this up, I was just trying to make it as fast as I could, and I found bottlenecks in weird places, like you know, tuning the TCP/IP stack on the server, and you know, finding stuff to optimize in the client-side code. But the actual amount of internet bandwidth available hasn't seemed to be a bottleneck yet, which is nice. Let's say that's 30 days. How long have we had this? Diode Zone's been running for like 3 months. So this is just the overall network bandwidth. And so we have a gigabit connection here. So we can, I think I've actually managed to get maybe like 800 or 900 megabits out of it in like real world scenarios. So like it's a pretty fast connection peak, but the actual sustained bandwidth has been pretty modest lately, which has been nice. Nice that there's a lot more room to grow, at least. And transcodes, it's been handling the new incoming videos pretty quickly. We had this big peak here when I dumped my back catalog in, but like, for example, pretty recently Sean Hodgins dumped all those older videos into the transcode queue, and we had a little, where's that little blip? Let's go to the not long-term view. Yeah, and the transcoder just dealt with that, which is cool. I think we're usually running like 3 instances of FFmpeg in parallel to process that queue. So yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I recently put out this short video that just kind of introduces what Diode Zone is and what PeerTube is and kind of what we're trying to do here, but I guess I just wanted to say it's been going pretty well. The server's humming along, and it seems like people are enjoying the video upload and download so far. And I keep saying this, but like, if you want an account, the automatic sign up is not currently enabled because we don't have a way of preventing spam bots, really. I need to see whether the relatively new email verification feature robustly prevents spam bots. I've just been kind of shy about it because I see a bunch of other servers having spam problems and just don't want any of that. So I've been just keeping it slow as far as the actual account creation. But if you want in, just drop me a DM and I'll make your account and we can have a good video hangout there. So the live side of Diode Zone unfortunately isn't as easy to share right now, since it's not really like a real like website with like a back end and all that. It's just like some Nginx stuff. So like it's mostly missing the like the authentication that I would need to allow stream publishing from outside. And I would either have to make a separate kind of ad hoc system for that or make something that integrates with PeerTube. And so I'd probably rather do at least like a very minimal thing that integrates with PeerTube and get that running. So, but yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I had to say here. There are, you know, I guess I didn't really talk in that video about the rest of the PeerTube ecosystem as much. And it's a little bit opaque. Like there's like from Diode Zone, it's a little hard to see, like let's say you pick a video here, it's a little hard to see what other servers this video is on. So like you might notice that it's got more than one peer. I guess not this video specifically, but there's one I was watching earlier today that had like 4 peers. And I was curious, like, oh, who are these? And I looked in the network inspector, and there were other servers that are adding redundancy. And a lot of the other servers that would add redundancy are also servers that are following the index. And so if you go into the admin tools for server, you can actually find out which servers are following you. There aren't currently ways to like approve or deny follow requests, so like any server could follow you. You can, you know, if you know of a server that follows, like a server that has a video you're looking for, like, you know, if I went to like peertube.social, which is a fairly big general purpose instance, and I looked for something that I know is on Diode Zone, like to go to the cat, then it finds that because this server is following Diode Zone. But there aren't a lot of just tools for regular users to see what's going on with the inter-server connections yet, so that's something that I look forward to improving or seeing someone else improve. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say right now, so maybe we could wrap this up. All right. Well, I guess if we don't have a reason to drag the stream on, we can just end it. Actually, I was just noticing, I was trying to check the Twitch chat, and Twitch says that I'm offline. Is that a problem on my end, or did we just drop off at some point? I sure thought we were on Twitch. Oh. I am on the wrong Twitch channel on this computer. I really need to get the Firefox container tabs set up on this machine. I was just looking at the TucoFlyer Twitch channel, which is not helpful. That one is offline. Yeah, all right, well, Twitch is online and successful, but I think we're still gonna end the stream. Anyway, I hope some of that was interesting. It was a bit less purposeful and a bit more rambly than most of my streams, but I felt like I hadn't streamed in a while and wanted to kind of end that streak, so. Emily's wondering if it has a verification or auth system to tell if other servers are giving out the proper video or other content. Yeah, I mean, so like if you were viewing the video from a different site, like there just isn't a general way of preventing other servers on the internet from like copying your content and then displaying it in ways that you can't really control. So there isn't really a system to like prevent embeds or something in contexts that you can't control, I think. There's been some discussion, if I remember right, about that on the issue tracker. But it's one of those things that I think the core developers are reluctant to even consider because there's no strong technical solution there. I could be wrong though. I haven't looked at that recently. And if you're talking about the redundancy that other servers add, I believe that goes through the WebTorrent system, so the client would be checking hashes. But I don't know that's 100%. That's true, like for sure. So that's something that would be good to verify. But I think what goes on here is that the main server provides a torrent file which has hashes that we use to verify the contents that are downloaded from all the servers, including redundancy servers and peers. So yeah, I think the chain of trust here is that if you're on diode.zone, then you've got like the SSL certificate that proves that you're actually on that. And then even though your browser is maybe downloading chunks of that video from peers or from other servers, the torrent file coming from diode.zone over SSL is what verifies that all the individual chunks are right. But I haven't gone super deep into the WebTorrent code, so like I don't know, for example, if they're making like performance trade-offs in verifying chunks or not. Like that would be something to maybe look into. But the protocol is just, you know, it's BitTorrent over WebSockets, so it has the same kind of like hash tree that BitTorrent would normally use for verifying contents. We haven't find an example of that, maybe. So you'll usually see mirroring on trending videos, or on like recently added videos. Basically every server admin has the option to add redundancy to servers that their server follows, and then you can also set up redundancy strategies. So, for example, I think my redundancy strategy is like I want to mirror like any video that's, or I want to mirror like up to 80 gigabytes of the most recently added videos on servers that I'm redundant for, and then you know, separately I want to mirror like up to 80 gigabytes of like the trending videos or something like that. It's like that kind of system. So this one's very popular actually. So yeah, 4 peers just right off the bat. You can just see all these other. Did we break? I don't actually want to pause on exceptions right now. So yeah, I mean, it starts out like a normal web page because it's a web page running on a computer. And it downloads all the HTTP or all the downloads all the, you know, client code and graphics over HTTP2. And then here we're starting a socket connection, but the socket is, you know, it's on the same domain. It goes through the same Nginx front end, but the HTTP connection morphs into a WebSocket connection this time. I think instead of HTTP2. And then that's actually how the tracker works and how we'd find out about other clients. Here's where we're downloading the actual torrent. And this is the same torrent file that you can download individually and then just give to a regular BitTorrent client. Not all BitTorrent clients support seeds over HTTP, so it might not be useful on all clients, but it's like a regular torrent file insofar as that matters. And then we start actually connecting to other servers. So we're getting, well, so we're starting to download the web seed, which is the canonical copy of the MP4 file. But we're downloading it 16K at a time, and actually we just tried grabbing part of it from my server, part of it from this server, and part of it from that server. And so we've already got 3 separate video hosts going on. And we download some more UI, and now it's just streaming the video, it looks like, from those same 3 servers. 16K at a time. Yep, that's cool. And then, so, you know, it's up to the admins how the mirroring works, really. So like with Diode Zone, I choose to follow a handful of servers, and those I have redundancy enabled for. If you've got a server and you want Diode Zone to follow it and add redundancy, just let me know. There aren't a lot that I'm following right now because I have somewhat more restrictive terms than a lot of the PeerTube servers, in some ways at least. The one that I think a lot of servers kind of fail to meet is that I really only want stuff that people like have the rights to post themselves. I don't want a server that's full of like stolen content, basically. And so some of that, you know, you can just try to enforce the licensing, right? But I think what you often find are that people get into the habit of just like aggregating content rather than kind of posting stuff that they really care about. And so I see that in a lot of the PeerTube servers, that even if they're trying to respect licensing, that you'll still end up seeing like large amounts of aggregation where people are posting like the entire works of so-and-so just because it's Creative Commons. And that's like cool. Like, I'm glad that there are PeerTube servers like that, but I was finding it kind of hard to motivate myself to post a lot of my own stuff on servers that seemed to mostly be about like reposting stuff that people didn't necessarily care that much about. So I wanted to basically just experiment with making a server that would be for specifically original content or stuff that was content that you participated in. So, and that seems to be really good for Diode Zone so far, but it also means that there aren't a ton of servers that I can follow, but I found a few. I think you'll see at least I wish there were better ways of actually searching the content by server, for example. Like you can browse individual people and channels. Like, for example, I could click a person and then browse all the videos they have and all the channels they have. But for example, to find a video that wasn't hosted on Diode Zone, I just kind of had to scroll through here and then find, oh, here's one. This one's on the site vid.leotindal, and it has some neat vids on it. And so I think some of these actually my server is providing redundancy for. So if you go here and look at the network, so we're still on Diode Zone, but this is now a video that isn't actually hosted on Diode Zone primarily. It was originally uploaded on a different server, but you're seeing it here because I'm subscribing to that server's index, and I'm also separately subscribing to add redundancy to videos on that server based on redundancy policies that I'm defining. And so because of that, I think you'll find that this is actually getting some of the video chunks locally and some of them from the original server. It gets the whole UI from Diode Zone because that's the website you're on. But then we actually connect a socket to the original host to use its tracker this time. And then we start getting chunks. We get the torrent from that site now. So the original site serves as the torrent. We're still getting like UI parts from Diode Zone. And then we start actually getting video chunks from both Diode Zone and the original site because we're offering redundancy. And you can even see that now. The original site, it's static web seed and then the video UUID. But Diode Zone, it's static redundancy and then the UUID. So, yeah. I guess I don't mind reruns so much. Like, I mean, Sean Hodgins is posting a bunch of old videos, and that's fine. I certainly posted a bunch of old videos, and that was fine. Like, I think it's great to give people a place to host video content that they're personally really invested in. I think the thing that I was just wanting to kind of shy away from was giving people a place to post large amounts of content that maybe they weren't really personally attached to. That didn't seem to be necessarily a way to seed the kind of community that I wanted Diode Zone to become. So, yeah, and maybe this won't work. There are a lot of reasons why it might fail, but it seems like something that's working all right so far and something that was worth trying. All right, I think the chat and my own lists of things to talk about have dried up a bit, so I think I might actually end this. Leave you with a bit of cat on the way out, maybe. I just saw the comment about it being too light to be a power brick and more like a power pebble. Yeah, that's pretty much spot on. Well, thanks for hanging out, everyone. This was kind of a short and random stream, but hopefully some of that was interesting. Just kind of scratching my itch to get the streaming back, even though my shop is always kind of in flux, and maybe this week more so than usual. But we'll keep trying to stream regularly, and I've got some more videos still that just need a little bit more editing work, and then I can upload them. Try to be less of a perfectionist and keep getting more things out. If you haven't seen the edits that I already posted recently, then if you go to scanlime.org, there's links to all the recent stuff. So. And as always, thanks so much to all my patrons, all the folks who donate monthly to keep this show going. That's really why we're doing this. That's how I can do this as my day job, and how I can spend all this time trying to figure out how to bring you the video content and streams and edits and snarky tweets and whatever else people want. So, oh yeah, Emily's wondering if I plan to do some content with the Fomus. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything specifically planned, but if you have any ideas, let me know. If it's also just a lot of Fomu boards, so I think I might want to do a combination of doing things myself and also figuring out how to do like giveaways of some sort. But the first thing to do is to get them programmed to the bootloader and QA'd a little bit. So the first project might just be to either design or build a like a pogo pin jig for them, and I'll have to look into that. But yeah, they're super cute and little, and I mean, it's just really amazing how far the open source FPGA ecosystem has come, and it's just another exciting addition to that. So yeah, let me know what you're excited about, and we can try to do some of that together on video. Happy hacking, folks. I'll see you all next time.